Well, this is a video about a Zenith 12H650, or at least that's what we're going to go with. I've looked up the schematic for this, and I've had a bit of trouble finding the correct one. Somebody had stamped on the back of it 12H789 or something like that, but whatever the number is they scratched on it is not the correct number. The chassis is a 12, what is it here? The 12B1. I've already started working on it. I've replaced all the capacitors that are, you see, that are yellow. I've even taken the time to figure out which side had the outside foil and put them in the correct orientation. I did run into some issues. If you look carefully, you can see that any place that I have bumped the wiring, it started coming apart. And I've already started replacing some of the wires. The red wire that you see that's bright red and the blue have been replaced, and just about every wire in this thing is going to need to be replaced. There's some wire that seems to be fine. It just seems to depend. Some of the cloth covered wire is fine, but others is not. And so it's going to take me a while. I've already had to order some parts. There's a couple of capacitors in here that are unusually high voltage ratings, even though the voltage across them is probably not going to be 1,000 volts. It calls for 1,000 volts. And the electrolytics that it needs I don't have. So anyways, I'm basically going to start, and also I had to order a bunch of wires to match the colors. I have blue, I have red, I have green, I have black, I have white. I don't have orange, brown, or yellow. I need 600 volt wiring. Most modern wiring is either 300, 600, or 1,000. And some of the wires are like an early form of shielded cable, like this one, and it's stiff as a board. So I've got to figure out how I'm going to replace that, if I'm going to just put shielded cable in there, or if I'm going to take that out, remove the wire from it, and put new wire inside it. I don't know, we'll see. I've already replaced a couple of resistors, the blue ones in there. Basically what I'm doing is I'm picking a wire and I replace it, and as I trace it out, any components that also attach at the same point, like with this red one, I traced it from here to here, and since I was going to be in here, I might as well check these components, and found that these two resistors were out of tolerance, so I replaced them. And then this capacitor will have to be replaced with the correct 1,000 volt, and this one needs a 1,000 volt. All the rest are, 600 volts will be fine. So I've also oiled this up. It was pretty stiff and sticky, and this thing has an interesting way of tuning. It has like a steering wheel, a volume control. This this is for changing the band It's the band switch, and then it goes on here. Sorry, it goes on here, and then this goes in here. And it took me a bit to figure out how to get this out because, or this goes in here. It took me a bit to figure out how to get this out because there's some screws, but they were hard to see. So you have to remove these two screws to pull this off. And then, so you would pull this knob off, remove two screws, pull this off, remove one screw, pull this off, and then there's 4 bolts like this holding the chassis on. The whole thing is spring mounted to reduce vibration, and it has a giant wave magnet antenna in the bottom of the, which I'll show later. So that's it for this until I get some parts in. See you in a few seconds. Alright, just to keep myself busy while I wait for some parts to get here, I've been replacing wires wherever I could. I've got the wires coming in from here to this choke, this FM, this coupling capacitor, to this wire going to the FM antenna, the other end of the power switch going over here. I've been working on the second IF transformer, replacing whatever wires I have the color for. And this is the second IF transformer taken apart. I've removed the cover to make it easier. I like that it's so big, it's easier to work on. There are 2 capacitors in here, and while they're probably perfectly fine, I'm going to replace them. They aren't marked. I did measure them with my LCR meter up to 100,000 hertz, and they measured at 277 picofarads, and the closest I could find to that was 276 picofarads, so I've ordered some of those. And I'm waiting for my orange wire to get here so I can finish wiring up the wires that are orange and the brown wire so I can do the brown wire. Otherwise, I have rewired everything else. Just to show you how incredibly fragile this wire is. See if I can do this. It just barely touch this wire, move it, flex it, and it disintegrates. It's very strange. Some of the wire is still somewhat okay. It all depends on, it seems to where, like this yellow cloth covered wire is fine. These wires are fine. This black wire is toast, but I'll probably leave it because it's wrapped in cloth, and as long as it doesn't flex too much, it won't break. This brown is all crinkly. This one's fine. These transformer wires, they're wrapped in rubber and cloth, but I really can't mess with those. Replacing them would be rather difficult, and as long as they don't flex or move, they'll be fine, and I'm not going to move them. This blue one will need to be replaced. It's not a transformer wire. This will need to be replaced. This radio has some early type of coax. It's got some shielded wiring in it, and depending on where it is and how it's installed, I'm going to probably leave it alone. As long as it doesn't get flexed, it'll probably be fine. These are going to have to be replaced, these rubber grommets. There's one here and there's one down here. That's going to be interesting. Oh wait, and there's another one there. So there's 3, and 2 of those are for the tuning capacitor, and I don't remember what that one's for. I have to look. Oh, I think it's part of the tuning capacitor. The death cap, I've got that on order. That's it wires power to the chassis. It needs to be replaced with a Y capacitor, a Y-type capacitor. And I mean, that's it for what I've got going on until I get some parts in. Okay, so I don't know how many days it's been since the previous entry on this one. I've gotten a little bit further. I've received some parts. I received the Y capacitors, and I moved the Y capacitor from where it was, going from the ground to the what I made the hot lead. Apparently in the schematic they put it on the what would have effectively have been the neutral lead, and they had the switch, I think, on the neutral lead. Apparently they did that a lot, where I don't know. Anyways, I moved it up to the other side of the switch. I realized that with it plugged in, that there would have been voltage on that cap all the time. And I tested it, and sure enough, I was measuring approximately 6 volts AC coming through that cap. And I don't really like the idea that it's just sitting there using voltage or passing voltage. So I put it to the other side of the switch, and I installed a fuse. I haven't determined exactly what size it's going to be. I think currently it's got like a 20 amp fuse in it, but I'm going to change that probably to 2. I estimate that this thing will use about just under 1 amp when it's running, but when you first turn it on, it may jump up to close to 2 amps. And I'm slowly but surely replacing wires. My DigiKey wire order has taken a lot longer than I would expect. I've got the second IF can finished and installed, and I still have to work on the other IF cans. They all have broken or damaged wires in them. And this is, so far, this is the bag o' junk that I've pulled out of it. And I have replaced the 30 microfarad 30 microfarad capacitor with a single one, and then the multi electrolytic, I have wired something up for that, but I haven't wired it in yet. I'm waiting for my wire to get here, and that's probably not going to be its final location. I just put it there to get it out of the way mostly. And if you've noticed, every one of these capacitors, if I haven't already mentioned this, every one of these capacitors have a black mark on them, and that's the outside foil, and I'm trying to match that with the originals. So I think that's it for this entry. Later.